Hi everybody, I'm Angie Reitmeyer. I'm the equine instructor here at WSU, and this is our 101 Lab Horse Week. Yeehaw! When you are planning to approach and halter a horse, it's important that you get your halter and rope squared away before you begin. So I would like you to take this rope halter, this where you have a double thickness of rope and these two knots on the side. That's the part that goes around the nose. Lay that over your left palm. Take this long skinny piece, that's called the crown piece. It's going to go behind the ears and it lays across your palm. Double up your lead rope and put that over your left elbow. All of these things keep you ready to halter your horse and still have one hand free to operate gaits or push nosy horses away. Confident being approached at their left shoulder. So I have my halter and rope arranged. This is Amelia. She's the target of my affection today. Oh, how nice. She came over to me. So that's a great sign. I like to offer my halter to the horse to smell, like shaking hands. Maybe we should practice social distancing with horses too. When I am ready to halter, I'm going to pass all of this halter underneath the horse's neck. Reach over the neck with the right hand. Pick up that long, skinny crown piece, and in this way, I have my horse effectively caught, and I can control their nose. Slip this halter on as politely as you can. This is such a tender area of the horse, so be polite and respectful. Bring the tag end of the rope halter down. Put it through this knot. There are pictures of this knot in your lab manual, so don't worry. Adjust it so that the knots of the halter are just below the cheekbones of the horse. Hold it snug with your left hand and tie the knot around the loop so that the tag end ends up facing back towards the horse's tail and you can see the top of the loop. We're going to go over the common names of the parts of the horse, starting at the front and working our way back. This area of the mouth and nose is called the muzzle. This is their cheek or jowl. Right up here behind their ears is the poll, the neck. This is their scapula. So here is the point of their shoulder. These are the withers. They're actually spinous processes of the thoracic vertebrae, but they're used to measure a lot of parameters in the horse, so it's important to point those out. This is the back. This whole region is the barrel. These are their rib cage and lungs inside of there, and then all of their intestines. This is the point of the hip. This is the point of the butt. This line from the top of the hip to the top of the tail is the croup. This area here in front of their hindquarter is the flank. And this is the stifle. This is their true knee. It has a patella and medial and collateral ligaments, just like your knee does. And it's right in there. In the horse, it's called the stifle. The common names in the horse's forelimb, as I said earlier, this is their scapula. This is the point of the shoulder. So the next bone down on you is your humerus, and in the horse, it runs here down to their elbow. This is their elbow. So this part is their forearm. The radius and ulna are back here. This is their carpus. Horsemen call it a knee. It's really your wrist. This long bone is called the cannon bone, and it was originally their middle finger toe when they still had toes, and now it has elongated into one long bone. This joint here is the fetlock, and it's analogous to the knuckle on your hand. This is referred to as the pastern, and that is these phalanxes of your finger, and then the hoof capsule here at the bottom, which is what they're walking on, basically the fingernail of their middle finger. Now let's move on to the horse's hind limb. So we talked about this being the point of their hip here, like in you, and it comes down here to the point of the butt, which is actually their seat bones. So from the point of the butt forward, to what is the horse's true knee, here is where their femur is. So that's this on you, coming down to your true knee. And remember earlier we said that in the horse we call it a stifle. Then from the knee going down to this joint, this is the hock joint, and it is analogous to your ankle. So in here we have the tibia, the large bone in the front, and the fibula, the little bone in the back. Here is their Achilles tendon. And again, just the same as in the front leg, this middle finger is what has elongated to get all the way to the ground. Its common name is the cannon bone, and fetlock, pastern, hoof capsule, same as the front limb. Now we're going to cover the vertebrae of the spine. In the horse, the cervical vertebrae start here at the pole, but you can see this bulge here. They actually go down much lower in the neck and then tie into the thoracic vertebrae behind the scapula. They have 7 cervical vertebrae, the same as us. The thoracic vertebrae start in here under the scapula and actually go up. And as you remember, I talked about the withers being the spinous processes of the thoracic vertebrae, and that is number 4, 5, 6, and 7 in its line of 18. So the thoracic vertebrae begin in here under the scapula and run about 2/3 of the way down the back to the last rib. So their rib cage comes in here, and you can palpate the last rib. Where you feel that last rib leave the spine is where the thoracic vertebrae end and the lumbar vertebrae begin. So this small section of the back are your 6 lumbar vertebrae. It's also referred to as the free span of the back because there's no bony support and structure underneath it. So it's important that we don't ask the horse to bear a lot of weight here. The next set of vertebrae are the sacral vertebrae. There are 5, and the unusual thing about the sacral vertebrae is they have spinous processes on the top, but they are fused on the bottom in order to strengthen the connection between the horse's hindquarter and the rest of the body. And a little bit above the tail start the coccygeal vertebrae, and they run all the way down the tail. If you palpate down the tail, you'd be able to see where the bone actually ends, and in Amelia it's right here, and all of this is just hair hanging off of that. And the coccygeal vertebrae are one set of vertebrae that the horse can have variable numbers between 15 and 21, depending on how genetically long their tails are. When you want to clean a horse's foot, and we want to do that so we can identify the structures within the hoof, if you want to pick up the front leg, it's important that you stand just adjacent to the front leg. Reach in, squeeze the chestnut, the horse will lift the leg to your hand. Take a hold of the hoof capsule firmly so it doesn't wobble up and down. And now we can identify structures within the hoof. All right, so this triangle structure in the middle is called the frog, and it acts to absorb concussion and help the hoof spread out as it lands. It has what they're called collateral grooves or collateral sulcus, co meaning one on each side and lateral meaning on the side. These are the bars. They're an extenuation of the hoof wall that comes back to this V and then angles forward, and their function is to prevent overexpansion of the hoof so that it doesn't just splay out like a pancake when the horse lands. This center part is the sole. This is the hoof wall, and there is a line between them called the white line. Doesn't look very white right now. That is actually lamina, a lamellar tissue that holds the hoof capsule to the bones and the structures inside the hoof. These are the heel bulbs, and when we put the foot down, this line where the hair meets the hoof is called the coronet band or the coronary band, and it functions like your cuticle. It's the origination of all hoof growth. We're going to go over taking the horse's vital signs. And one of the important things to know is how to guess at your horse's weight. So we use this little $2 item called a weight tape, and it gives you a fairly close approximation of what your horse weighs. There are 2 points that you can use, either at the top of the withers or the base of the withers, as long as whichever way you use, you're consistent with. And then it goes around the heart girth of the horse, called that because their heart resides right in here. So drop one end down the side, reach down there, pick it up. I'll try it both ways and see what we get. The weight tape has pounds and kilograms, so be sure you're reading the correct side. You pull it pretty snug. You don't want to cut her in half, but maybe get a finger or 2 in there. 750 pounds at the base of the withers and 807 at the top of the withers. Let me show you that again. So we have this, about a 50-pound difference just with this extra height of the withers. There are some breeds and body types that would make it preferable for you to use one dimension or another, or one space or another, but as I said, either one is considered correct as long as you're consistent in that. If you had 2 different people weighing the horse and one was weighing it at the top of the withers and one at the back, of course you would come up with wildly different numbers. This tape can also be used as a height tape. It has this handy little measurement here that says toe here, and then it shows you where to put it on the horse or next to the horse, and you lay it just next to their front leg, and you put your toe here right where it says and bring it up, and it helps if you have some kind of a straight line that goes over to the horse. If you were to bend the tape this way, it would show the horse being actually taller than it is. But if I used a straight line, it says she is just here at about 13.3. So this side of the tape has inches and hands, which is how horses are measured in the United States. And it also has centimeters, which is how the rest of the world measures everything in the metric system. This is a height stick. Not every barn has these, but if you really need to have an accurate height measurement of your horse, this would be the tool of choice. It's important that you extend it all the way until the red button pops. Wait for it, pop, there it is. And then you depress this red button here at the top. This is that straight arm that I was talking about with the weight tape that makes it so helpful to be able to see exactly where the top of the withers are. So you line that up with your horse's front leg and then bring the straight arm down until it rests just on top of the withers. And there's a level bubble here to make sure that you're holding the stick straight as you just rest it on top of the withers. You're not pressing down, just rest it on the top, level bubble right in the middle, and then you can gauge your horse's height. Right here, go at the bottom line because that's the line that was on her withers, and she is exactly 14 hands. You see on the stick we also have inches, and then every 4 inches becomes another hand. 10 hands, 11 hands, 12 hands, 13 hands. If you were to read this stick up here, let's say Amelia measured right there, she would be 13.1, 13.2. That's how it would be recorded. Up here would be 13.3. She happened to be up 1 more inch at exactly 14 hands. In order to listen to the horse's heart and evaluate how many beats per minute, which is a great indicator of how much stress or pain they're in, your stethoscope should come right in here behind the left elbow, and you press into the heart girth area fairly firmly so that it gets through all of that muscle and bone between you and the heart. It's well protected, that organ, and start counting your beats per minute. The name for any GI upset is colic, and it tends to strike fear into the hearts of most horsemen. It's the #1 killer of horses. So if your horse is acting with some colic symptoms, if you have a stethoscope, you can listen to the different areas of the horse's digestive system in order to determine where the problem is. So we would listen high here on the left, and then low here on the left. The large colon is down here on this lower part of the horse, and that's a very common site of impaction colic. So you want to hear some whooshing sounds of peristaltic movement. And then it's important that you come around and to the right side of the horse and listen over there as well. In particular, this upper right quadrant where the horse's fermentation vat lives, it's called the cecum in a horse. And you would hear that noise up here, high on the right, and it should sound this burbling, gurgling, brewing noise, making some kombucha in there. And then also listen here, low on the right. You have quite a little bit of small intestine and large colon in this lower region as well. You want to hear sounds. The absence of sounds will scare you. That's a sign of impaction colic. And too many sounds, too loud here in the cecum area is a sign of gas colic. A very important vital sign to know how to take is to take your horse's temperature. So get yourself a thermometer, turn it on, put it in a little Vaseline. This is not absolutely necessary, but it is kind of a kindness to the horse. Set that down. If you don't know how your horse is about this, maybe have somebody help you. These horses are pretty good. Approach the hind end and raise the tail. And I like to let them know that I'm coming in here with my hands so that they're not surprised. This can be kind of cold, especially in the winter. And you just insert it into the rectum and wait for the beep. It's already starting to climb. A normal temperature for a horse is 99.5 to 101.5. She's now at 94 and still climbing. This thermometer is pretty small, so it's not an uncomfortable thing, but some horses are a little leery about having people back here because it is a sensitive area. So be polite and respectful. Notice that I'm off to the side here with my legs out of kick range. So it beeped, and she's only reading 95.9, which is fairly common for these mares right before lunch. It's important to know where to give your horse injections, in particular vaccinations. And there is a really easy way to determine where the main musculature of the neck is. Remember when we talked about the cervical vertebrae, I mentioned that they were down much lower. And they actually form the lower border of this triangle that happens right here that you can inject into. So the vertebrae form the lower aspect. Many people assume that the vertebrae run right up here along the top of the neck, under the mane, but that is not true. There is a strong ligament, a band that runs from the pole to the base of the withers called the nuchal ligament, and that runs just here under the mane line. The back of the triangle is this leading edge of the scapula. If you press your fingers in here, you can actually feel that edge of their shoulder blade. And the triangle that's formed between those three structures becomes the area, your target, for where to put a sub-Q or, in particular, an IM, an intramuscular shot, should go right into this big muscle right here. If you need to draw blood on a horse or give an intravenous injection, it would go right here. This is called the jugular groove of the horse, and their jugular vein and their carotid artery are in this groove. If you press on that, you will start to see a buildup of blood there that's not getting down, and if you needed to know if you were in the jugular vein, you'd put your needle right in there and it would come up with blood. This area underneath here that I'm holding, this is their trachea, and their esophagus is just up above the trachea.